Yeah,
hear that one.
yeah.
Call this regular meeting of council for Tuesday, September 4th, 2018. Order. Need approval of the agenda. Kirby, Jaka, all in favor? Adoption of minutes for the August 7th, 2018 regular council meeting. Jaka, all in favor? Need adoption of the minutes for the special meeting for August 13th, 2018. Dr. Howe, Dr. Casey, all in favor? Any of business arising from those minutes? Seeing none. Get on to delegations and 5.1, London's Yard Hunt 2018. Larry, welcome.
Okay, thank you.
The floor is yours.
My name's Terry Gosgrove. I'm here tonight representing the London's Yard Hunt. Our family moved here 15 years ago from Kelowna. That's where our love for Halloween started. Since being in Tumblr, we started a hunt and it grows every year. We see between 350 and 500 people every year in our 3 hours that we're open. Several years ago, we started asking people to bring a non-perishable food item for the food bank, and this went over really well. It's a great way to support our community. If you've never been, the haunt itself is a maze, and we actually build it. It takes us a couple months to build. We build it out of wood and whatnot, and it goes through completely through our backyard and usually comes out our neighbor's yard. Lots of scares along the way. It's free to everyone, and like I said, we plan it all year long. It takes us about 2 months to build. We've already started, so. We choose a new theme every year, so it's always a unique experience. Sadly, this is our last year that we're going to be putting on this haunt. We've really outgrown our space. There's not much more we can do. We do have a very small lot as it is. What we'd like to do this year is do something a little different. We're looking at having a block party. So what we'd like to do is close the street, which we have done in previous years. And that is really out of safety. We got a lot of people coming and going, a lot of cars going by. It's just safer for the kids that if you can't actually drive in that space, because everyone does kind of end up at our place sooner or later that night. So what we're looking for is the road closure, some tables and chairs, some barricades, and we're looking for the bonfire to be moved. So we've talked to the Lions already about this because we know that this is their event, and they're fine with the idea. And I've talked to Dustin Curry about it. He doesn't seem to be anything against the fire code. It's just a way to put everything in one location that night. So, like I said, we've done 550 people through our yard. So we have no problem. The capacity is not an issue for us. And if we stretch out along the whole from Ash all the way over to the corner of Spruce, there's lots of room for the bonfire. We'd like to incorporate some games to go with our theme this year, which will be Zombie Apocalypse. And we've talked to the Rangers, and they're willing to come out and help with the games and the hot chocolate and that. So I think it's a great family activity. So we get a lot of parents or a lot of kids that they're scared to go in, so they wait for their party outside. This gives them something to do while they're waiting. So it's everything in one spot, and yeah. So that's kind of what we're looking for.
I gotta admit, I haven't been there, but I will be there this year.
Awesome.
And it's a great thing, and I'm sorry to hear it's the last year. But maybe it can be picked up and moved, done someplace else or something.
Yeah.
You definitely started something that people like, and it's good for the town.
Thank you.
Outside of anything? Mr. Kirby?
Thank you, Your Worship. I love partaking in the Blendon's Yard Haunt. Can't lie, I love being part of the whole scare game. Halloween really is a culture of its own, and so many people love it. And I think what you've done down there is absolutely fantastic. And you do get, I mean, most of the town is down there. So I think if it's something that, meets, if the fire chief doesn't have concerns, I think, looking into that, if Steph, has a report or something, like, I'd be for it, because it really is, it's a great way to get the community all into one place, and it's fun. And I just want to thank you guys for putting that on every year. I sure enjoy it.
And I agree. I've been one of the ones that has to stand out in front of the place while my kids go through it and froze to death out there while it's snowing. Have a fire that you could go to warm up would be fantastic. I'm a little leery on the fire in the downtown area, but if our fire chief says it's good to go, then, that's all my concerns would be alleviated there. And the best example that I like of it is that it's community members taking something on their own. They haven't asked for a cent from us to do this, maybe to put up the barricades and stuff to block the road off, but they've done this all on their own. This is somebody coming forward, not looking for money to do it, just help and permission to do it. And that, it would be nice to have a lot more people that were able to volunteer like that in town, for sure. So again, I'd support it, provided there's no issues with the district of Tumbler Ridge. Don't mind shutting the road off for a little bit. I wouldn't mind seeing some letters from community people that live around there, your neighbors and stuff, to make sure that they're good with it. It'd be pretty hard to canvass the entire apartments on it, but if you could make an attempt to talk to those folks and maybe have something in writing would be good. But yeah, I'm supportive as well.
Yes. No, but good luck with it. We will get a report from staff, just to go over everything that you want there. And I'm excited to come and attend it. Actually, if my wife leaves me at home handing out candy, I'm going to get away from that this year.
I'm excited to scare you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, you're the next one too, TR Day Society.
I will continue my love of public speaking here. We do have a bit of a slideshow going on there too. Tumbler Ridge Day Society has undergone many changes in 2018. It's the first year that the society completely took over the planning and execution of Grizzfest. There were many challenges along the way and was definitely a learning curve. The event itself was amazing and turned out great. Our attendance was down from last year. We have two major factors for this. Kincana Event Center put on a concert that weekend. Alabama played to a sold-out crowd of 5,000 people. Prince George also started a classic rock festival, and it was 5 days after Grizzfest. Needless to say, we did not draw many people from Dawson or Prince George. Our lineup was already in place before either one of these shows were announced. As I'm sure you all know, it takes a lot of time and money to put on an event like this. We've been so lucky to be able to bring world-class talent into our small remote town. It's getting harder and harder to compete with other venues. I think it's time for Grizzfest to evolve. I'm not quite sure what this means, but it's the first thing that we will be addressing come November. How do we make this festival better? Maybe start by changing the hours. If we started later in the day, it might give other groups a chance to plan activities in the downtown area or beyond to entice more people to come to town. Baseball tournament, farmer's market, poker ride, a late night dance, to make it really worth the trip. We'd like to see a week of jam-packed with activities from Grizzfest to Emperor's Challenge. That would be the goal. A lot of people said this year that there's nothing to do here. We hear that all the time. Well, I'm not a hiker, what do I do? So that's an issue that we have. What do we do? Well, the restaurants have limited menus. The bar's not even open. Where do we go? So these are all things that we've heard this year. We did some surveys on the grounds, and it's all things that need to be addressed for this event to continue. I'm not going to read this whole report out, but I did want to touch on a few areas. One thing we did this year to really improve the look and the security of the whole event was the fencing. Most years we rent the snow fence from the district, and it doesn't really work very well. It's only about 3 feet high and it's always sagging down. This year we got 6-foot high fencing at Fort St. John, and took them 3 trips, but they came, they set it up, it went all the way around. It was almost impossible to get over. It actually cut down on the amount of security that we needed, and we had 0 issues in that way. It just looked like an event, really. We got a lot of compliments on our fencing. So, and it actually cost less than what we've spent in previous years. So it worked out really well. Volunteers is another issue. Without having the community center, it definitely limits the way we can kind of recruit volunteers. We did everything online. It seemed to work out not too bad, but we had a lot of people that would sign up and just not show up. And we had actual 12 locals. That's 24 shifts in 2 days that didn't show up that we had to cover. We actually advertised outside the community, and that worked out well too. We had volunteers out of Fort St. John and Grand Prairie, and they really enjoyed the chance to come and volunteer and help out and kind of see behind the scenes, so that worked out well. We actually used the Junior Rangers this year. They did all our garbages and recycling, and in return, they got all the bottles. All the cans from the event, from the beer gardens, from backstage, from on the grounds. And that was really nice. They enjoyed it. They all got on the grounds for free. They all stayed and enjoyed the show and had a really good time. Storage is one of the biggest issues that TR Day Society is facing. We're still a nonprofit. Most of our stuff, well, almost all of our stuff is always stored at the community center. The society has a lot of assets, and big assets. We've got 3 trailers, which are 2 dressing rooms and a bathroom trailer, plus our heavy metal barricades. These are all sitting at Southpaw right now. We have a fridge, a beer tent, a sound tent, and a car tent at Avalanche Trunking. We have the dunk tank and our mini golf at Embassy Maintenance. And both Sheena and I have our basements full of stuff that we wish was not there. This is a huge issue for us, and I'm not quite sure what we're going to do. We've been going around about it all year. Even if we had sea cans or something, we don't have any place to put them. So that's something that's definitely got to be addressed as we go forward. This year we did everything to try and get the locals back to Chris Fest. We started half-price ticket sales in December. We let the nonprofits in for free. We did a half-price home-based business, and we let all the kids back in 12 and under free. And anyone that complains about the price of a ticket, you can volunteer for 4 hours and you get in free. So we still get the people that will come to the gate, and you're always going to get them that say it's too much. Oh, well, it's 9 o'clock. I'm just here to see the headliner. Can't I get a discount? No, of course not. You don't get a discount when you went to see Alabama, so. Some new sponsors this year. Tim Hortons came on board with us. We have a great relationship with them. We actually had a Timmy's Lounge backstage. They did all our coffee, muffins, donuts, all that stuff, tea for the artists and for the crews and for the media. And it was really nice to have them on board. They would be happy to be back again. Pizza Hut as well from Dawson. They donated 15 large pizzas each day. We had a runner go back and forth, and it's something that really cut down our catering costs was to have these things all donated. Mr. Mike's also came on board. They're really into supporting live music, and they just signed with Live Nation this year. And we approached them about some simple gift cards for volunteer giveaways, and they came back and they said, we want to actually support your event. And so what they actually ended up doing is they bought 6 VIP tickets, which they raffled off in their 3 northern restaurants. And we had a huge social media presence for Mr. Mike's with the whole Bret Michaels giveaway thing, so it was really good. They also donated $500 worth of gift cards and $500 worth of lanyards for our volunteers and our artists. So, and they actually said that that was as much as they could do this year because they'd already spent their money for this year. But they said next year we'd like to come on board and do something bigger. So we were really excited about that. Our kids area, this year we did Hula Hoop Circus, which was free. We actually did a glow show Friday night if you were there. It was 45 minutes long and it was right after Battle of the Bands. It was really good. You probably saw some pictures in the slideshow there. We also had 6 inflatables, 2 of our own, and we had one from the big Canooma Coal Slide, and we rented 3 out of Grand Prairie. Plus we had our dunk tank, mini golf, we had balloon animals, face painting, and coloring contest. So we had lots for the kids to do. As some of you know, you were there for Battle of the Bands. We had pretty good turnout as always. And yeah, we had 6 bands this year from as far away as Burnaby. BizFest has actually got quite a reputation. There's not a lot of festivals that do this and showcase this live entertainment, and you get to come, and they're coming from all over, and you know, a chance to perform. You know, like the winners were from actually Kelowna, Lucky Monkey, and they got to say they opened for Bret Michaels. So that's pretty exciting. New this year too, we got a Chamber of Commerce / Geopark membership, so we had a presence in the Vic Centre all year long, which was fantastic. We were able to advertise there and sell our merchandise, and it worked out really well. We also did some silent auction items this year. We always do an autographed guitar, and this year we also had a metal art guitar that we had to raffle off, so we made 2,300 from there. I've also included some social media posts in here of just a few things that were said about Tumblr, said about BizFest. Also, we had a really strong media presence this year. The 2 big headliners that we had, Monster Truck is big in their own circles, maybe didn't go over as well here, but the Bear from Fort St. John, they were here and the stage was theirs all day. They had quite a bit of representation and announced the bands and promoted us from the time that we announced. And we got probably $15,000 worth of free advertising from all of these, from all of these companies this year, because we actually had J.C. Coots, a radio announcer, on our board, and he really helped us with the negotiation of those contracts. Bret Michaels himself and he was amazing. Anyone that was there for Bret Michaels, it was quite a show. He's a pretty big name, not just in music, but in TV and in movies and everything else. He was a Celebrity Apprentice winner. Him and his band were great, and they flew in here to our airstrip and flew out in the dark. And as soon as Bret got here, he had to run up to show me. As soon as they were going to turn onto the highway, there was a bear with 2 cubs there. And they'd never seen a bear before, these city boys. So, and the little cub stood up, and he had to show me these pictures. He thought it was the most amazing thing ever. So they will never forget Tumblr because it was their first bear experience. But Bret actually had 2 hats that he wore on stage, and he raffled them both off afterwards, and that money is going. He told me to pick a charity here in town. I picked the food bank because that's, with Halloween, that's also who we donate to. So there's a $350 US check that will be coming from Bret Michaels himself that will be going to the food bank. So I just included some of our sponsors for this year. We had some new ones, so it worked out really well. We appreciate the fact that Mayor and Council let the society take on this event this year. It was a lot of work. It went from, Joy's always been amazing, and there's always been so many people there at the community center that have been involved. And it kind of went to 3 of us throughout the year, and then come the weekend, the rest of the board was there. So it was a lot of work, but this is an amazing event. It's been going on 17 years now. There's not very many events that can actually say that. Sure, they pop up, but they're going to be gone pretty soon too. And I mean, even the one in Grand Prairie, East Coast Garden Party, couldn't go on this year, and Chris Fest did. So I hope council understands that this is an important arts and culture event. I think once we lose it, it'll be gone forever. I think it does need work. I think it needs tweaking. It needs help. We need new people on our board, new ideas. But as I say, I think this event should go on, and it will need your support if it's to continue. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. And I really appreciated the tour. It actually opened my eyes to more of what you do than I didn't understand it completely. And I really appreciate you showed me that around the place. It was very impressive. I know that thing in Dawson, the mayor even apologized when he found out it was going on at the same time as Youth Fest. But I don't know how you're going to stop that stuff from happening because they had a good weekend. So,
Yeah.
So, any of council?
I have a couple questions, but first, just a couple comments. Hats off to all of you, all your volunteers and your directors. I was down there for all 3 days, so and I thank you for the tour. I mean, I was there before, but it's good to see it from the outside too. So hats off to your whole group there. You bring up storage as an issue. I guess my concern is I know we discussed in council in regards to the public works that was expanded to have the CCAN lay down there. It wasn't just for like a group like yourself, but the junior rangers. There's all that kind of discussion. I'm just wondering if we've gone anywhere on that concept. We're gonna have to stop that.
I don't think we have it. It was just a conversation in council, but I think we should get serious about it because it's definitely would fall in line with what you were talking about.
Yeah.
And all the stuff you got, and I saw a lot of it.
Yeah.
So I can see that being very handy.
I don't think we went nowhere on it because I know we had to give approval to the junior rangers because they were getting a free CCAN to come in from their organization. So my understanding is their CCAN was approved to go out there.
We have to have the area.
So their CCAN was approved when they applied for it because they needed a space for it. So I'm just curious if that's happened or not.
I don't know off the top of my head. I'll have to get back to council.
So I guess my other question to you, you say like obviously you guys took it over for the first year. I can imagine the workload and stuff like that. And you had good enough assistance from staff on the flip? Like you get all the stuff you needed in regards to your financials, the way stuff was being tracked and everything else?
We basically, when we took over, we said, we can't, this is a huge ordeal for us. I mean, we were not trained to do this stuff. Sure, I've been on the board for a few years, but I'd never done these things before. If you ask me how to run the beer gardens or run this or run that, I can do that because that was my job. But to take over the day-to-day runnings, to apply for these different things, to get approvals, to execute contracts with bands, like, no, I'd never done any of that. So it was a huge undertaking. It wasn't a casual thing. It wasn't a part-time thing. It was a full-time job from the time we started, and it's still going on. So we decided that what happened before October 24th, which was our AGM, we were not going to worry about. We couldn't change anything that's happened. The numbers were what they were. We weren't even going to worry about them. What we were worrying about is what we started with. So that's basically what we did. We just started and worked through it. We had checklists, and what stuff came up. If we had questions, I would send Joy an email, like, when does this get done? What do we do here? And she would, she'd basically direct us. So, but it was definitely a learn as you go.
I appreciate your bluntness with us, the issues that you had. It is big, and it was all new to you in some ways. So I think you did a heck of a job. So I sure appreciate it. Anybody else?
Thank you, Worship. Yes, again, I think it was a success for anybody who attended. I thought again, you guys had options for the nonprofits and the home-based, whether they took those options or not. Getting the larger franchises like Tim Hortons and Pizza Hut and Mr. Mike's from Dawson, those are great achievements, and that just goes to show that we do have outside support. But I do understand when you say there's issues with volunteers and just with maybe the location of the grounds, how to build it. And you're right, our town is a hard, when they say there's nothing to do, most of the town shuts down early. That whole, for businesses to try to take advantage of the increased, visitation to the town, it's not happening anymore, and that's too bad, because that was really the goal when it first, the festival first started. It was that it was really impact the downtown core, and businesses were actually making money and getting involved, and nowadays it just doesn't seem to be happening. And then also just the fact that our camping, there's an issue with camping, and I know when I go to a festival, I go to a lot of music festivals where they have places where that you can camp as a group, because you're going out, you're with friends, and you want to have fun. So that means that after the concert, you go to a place where you can sit around a campfire, you sit around and visit, where maybe you don't have to be quiet at 10. And I know Tent City, that wasn't something that GrizFest came up with, but I think you need to have something that supports the festival in a way that you can have the campers, they can have fun, it's regulated, there's policing, and you can have that later hours, 12, 1 o'clock, where you can say, okay, now maybe you got to shut it down. But yeah, I think it's kind of frustrating on that end, and you're absolutely right, building it from GrizFest to Emperor's Challenge, we've all talked about that would be great to build that week up with other events. That is just hard to do, because it seems like every group, our volunteers are dwindling down. And that could be just an age demographic, I don't know what it is, but it's getting harder and harder to pull things off. But great job, I thought it was fantastic. I think the fencing you mentioned we did look like a festival. I mean, it's not from the heart, like the hard work that you guys put in and the names you got this year, that's just gonna be another thing you gotta do board and figure out ways to go. But you're right, if that weekend stops, then that weekend is lost forever, for as far as visiting goes. Thanks, Terry.
I apologize to Mr. Wall for not getting in and giving you some time to pull this together for me. I didn't really think about it till right now. But do you have just kind of a rough idea, again, Mr. Wall, what the in-kind and the cash was for the GrizFest outlay? Do you remember what
This year?
Yeah, remember we chose, I think it was 90,000 that we chose to do in cash, right?
90,000 in cash, and then council approved about 2,500 in kind.
And that was for the stage setup?
And then we had, I'm not sure the value of the services that came back to us. Do either of you remember what the value of that invoice was?
Yeah.
So then we provided about $5,600 in services.
And that included Public Works,
Yeah, that would have been everything that we did.
including the stage?
Yes.
The stage was in kind.
And I believe that was valued at 2,500.
Okay. And in your opinion, was that a better way to give you guys more cash to work with, a better way of doing it, or what's your feeling on that? I think that was the intention that we went in there with, was to kind of get it out of staff's hands so they don't have to deal with all that, and put it in your hands and kind of, see how it goes.
Yes, it wasn't 90,000, it was 90,000 in total, but it was 40,000 for the in-kind. It was a $50,000 grant and aid. So 40,000 basically for district services, which is what kind of has always been.
Yes.
Right? However, we found that 40,000 just is not going to do it. And that number really hasn't changed much over all these years. I mean, every time I get a bill, it does not go down, it does not stay the same, it always goes up. And when I got quotes from the district, well, this doesn't reflect the wage increase from last year. Well, neither does my in-kind. So I think the numbers are off. I like being given the money to spend wiser. We came up with different ideas that maybe wouldn't have been thought of before. But I think 40,000 is a low estimate.
Okay, so just so I'm clear on it though, there's $50,000 grant aid given, right?
Yeah.
And then an additional $40,000 in cash for you to decide however you wanted to spend it
Yes.
to pay for services and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
And from the district this year, however, you only needed to use $5,600. And then you went out and outsourced fencing and garbage and all this other stuff that was a better way for you to support different groups and stuff. So in my mind, from what I hear, from what I can see out of it, it sounds like it was a better way to go that way. Is 40,000 on the low side? Unfortunately, it probably is. I was hoping that you would come in and say, yeah, you know, we did it for 20,000 and we saved the taxpayers 20 grand, but
Well, you know, and I think just being our first year, there's only so much that we could do. I mean, there's so many moving parts to this festival, and if you've done it year after year, you know all that. If you've never done it, you're learning as you go. So we changed what we could, and there are things that, okay, we need to keep this because we're safe with this, right? You can't change everything at once. So going forward, moving on through the years, I would think every year it would get a little better. We will find better ways. We're already looking at, I've been talking to Foster's in Dawson Creek about coming on board with sponsorship. We're willing to give them tickets for every trailer they sell in 2019. I mean, that could be huge for us. Okay, so they don't all come. So 10 of them came. At least we got on board with sponsorship. It's a way forward. Like, to me, we've just been doing the same as it's always been done. And I don't think that works. I think times change and we need to change with it. And we kept the festival hours and kind of the whole flow of it the same because we had to. But moving forward, yes, we would like to change things and we'd like the kids area to kind of go longer, but you have issues with, well, now you need more volunteers. Where do you get these people from?
Yeah.
Like, everybody wants, but nobody wants to be there to help. So we hear all the criticism and then we hear, well, you should have done this, you should have done that. And it's like, well, that's great. Would you like to join the board and help?
exactly.
Well, no, I don't want to do that. So, yeah.
Yeah, you know what, I think we've got to work together to help maybe cut some of the costs and stuff like that. And maybe having a liaison from council on your board next year would be a step in the right direction. I don't think we've ever done that. Or have we?
Years back, there was, Aileen actually was at a few meetings and Ron Mackay.
I think we should do it again because I think it's something that council or the district should be working with you. And because everybody I talked to loved it. I know you had some stiff competition this year. Yes.
And just one more question to Mr. Wall. Mr. Wall, do you think that we are sufficiently at arm's length from GrizFest at this point?
To allay the
Liability concerns.
liability concerns. I mean, we're not organizing it, we are in this.
We're distancing ourselves from,
A contractor relationship, so we worked with GrizFest to itemize the list that we were going to deliver. Now, to say, if we deliver those items in a manner that isn't safe, we set up the stage and that was to collapse, that would be on us,
Yes.
But the other events, I would say, we are sufficiently at link, we're just a contractor relationship. They ask us to do something, we go through our fees and services. We actually brought that contract to council.
Okay.
So I would say we were much further at link than we were before. I won't tell council ever that you're protected completely, but it's definitely a much longer arm's length than it had been in the past.
and Terry, you understand the idea behind that as well,
Sure.
why we wanted to keep the district at arm's length from, that's part of the reason, from what I remember as well, why we wanted to go this route as well, so. Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much for both your presentations.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, correspondence, retail cannabis store. Information discussion.
Move for information, Your Worship.
For that. All in favor? UBCM official opposition meeting opportunities. It's a breakfast they put on the UCM, and I think we attend it every year, so I'll just go ahead and do the same thing. Information or discussion?
Move it for information.
Seconder? Councillor Howe, all in favor? Carried. Northern Health meeting at UBCM. Information or discussion? Councillor Kirby.
Thank you, Worship. I think we should attend a meeting with Northern Health while we're there.
So it's discussion. Okay, Mr. Wall, where are we at with this?
We've already applied for a meeting. This correspondence came in on the 20th requesting council's reply by the 31st of August. So not a very long time frame. So we have applied for a meeting already, and we have one for the Friday morning of UBCM. If council doesn't want it, we can always get rid of it. But the time frame they gave us was very short.
And that brings up another thing, is that our meeting with the Minister of Health is in conjunction with Bush and Oswego. And so we'll have to limit the amount of people that go, and Dr. you and Councillor Scott are the two health people here, so we get to talk to each other and then decide if we want to stick with that one. And then maybe one of you will do something. Ready, 6.4, the John O'Hanley Memorial Golf Tournament. Thank you. Information and discussion. Councilor Casey,
Move for information, Your Worship.
seconder. Councilor Kirby, all in favor? Opposed, carried. TR Cares Golf Tournament. Same thing, thank you for that. Information and discussion. Councilor Kirby,
Move for information?
all in favor? Opposed? Congratulations from UBCM and Green Communities Committee. Information and discussion. Daisy,
For information, Your Worship.
seconder. Kirby, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Highlights of the NCLGA Board of Directors meeting. Commission discussion.
Commission.
Seconder. Gaka, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Human trafficking in BC municipalities. This seems to be coming up over and over again. Councilor Kirby?
Move for information.
Debcar Ventures, information or discussion?
For discussion?
Myself.
Okay. Seconder. Go ahead, Councilor.
Yeah, so through to Mr. Wall, I've already had some conversations with him in email as well. Just wondering where we are with the update on this. I know there was some maintenance issues discussed with you and Debcar Ventures, but there was also some stuff on the outside of the building that needed to be addressed. And the last time I was down there, last Thursday, still hasn't been addressed. How are we doing with the maintenance on that building?
So we've got a contractor coming in, and they should be here anytime now. Do you know the specific date?
I know materials have been purchased, but doesn't have to get it till he's closer to the other side.
So, yeah, we've got the materials purchased. We've got a contractor who has the materials purchased. It's just waiting for their availability to come down. And we've had this company lined up for a while now.
So who on staff does, now that Mr. Clickash is no longer here, who on staff does the, like the general, like maintenance on the buildings? It goes around to check their buildings to make sure they're, you know, in proper condition, the windows aren't frosting up, and heaters are on, pipes are not frozen. Who in our group does that?
It'd be our maintenance department.
Which is,
Like be headed by Mr. McCacken.
oh, okay, okay, from the community center.
That's correct.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, anybody else? 6.10, Charles Helms' letter to the,
Your worship.
Jill.
oh, thanks. I gotcha. 6.10, and Dr. Helms' letter on fossil management. Information and discussion. Councilor Kirby?
Information?
Seconder? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Ridge Museum, significant fossils. Information and discussion. Councilor Howard.
For discussion?
Seconder? Mr. Cocker. Go ahead.
So just for clarity, the provincial government has now told us that the fossils that are within the building cannot be moved without the consent of the Royal BC Museum. That's the way I understand this letter? Does that make sense?
That's my understanding as well.
So what is the role of the Royal BC Museum with our museum? That's maybe the part that I don't understand. Does anybody understand how that works?
Mr. Wally, you wanna?
Our museum acts as a satellite repository for the Royal BC Museum. So all of the fossils belong to the provincial government. The provincial government entrusts all fossil management to the Royal BC Museum, who entrusts this collection to the Tunbridge Museum Foundation.
So just to continue on that, so then the concerns of the paleontologist, I think it's Miss Buckley, that is up there, her concern is that the funding ended, she would have to take the fossils out and bring them to somewhere where they could be taken care of properly. So the way I understand it, if the funding ends, which it ends after this $50,000 is gone, which is what, October? Fossils don't go anywhere because the Royal BC Museum steps in and then takes care of the fossils?
That's the way I see it. They have us down there as part of this decision too. If we've got to say that we don't want to be part of that we don't want to take care of them. As far as I read in that, the gentleman that was here, he talks about the only museum that the province recognizes is the Royal BC Museum. But they do understand what we have invested in this as a district, and they see that as giving us some role in saying what happens to these
Yeah.
things.
I guess my question at the end of the day is if someone from the Royal BC Museum is going to be in charge of our fossil collections, if people at the PRPRC were not, who pays them? Is the provincial government paying them at that time?
The Royal BC Museum?
Mhm.
Yeah, they fund the Royal BC Museum, so.
So kind of in a backwards way of looking at it, if the funding was to, well, it does end, it ends in October, the Royal BC Museum and the provincial government is going to fund the housing of the fossils.
We haven't got to that point, actually. They've said that, you know, we've got to be part of this discussion. I guess if we say that we don't want to have anything to do with it, then it's going to be up to the Royal BC Museum to do something with those fossils. And I don't think there's any intention of moving them out of BC. But I can't see us ever getting to the point that we don't want to be part of those fossils. We've got a lot invested here. And if we have to go a different direction than we're going right now, we'll have to do that.
It just seems like this is the opportunity for the provincial government to then support the PRPRC. Lisa Buckley is the lady who takes care of it. She's the one that could be paid to do it, rather than us having to pay for it through the winter months to protect these fossils or whatever has to be done. this is their opportunity to step in. This is the catch point here, I think.
I think you're probably right. I think we're in a good position that they're gonna realize that they have to put something in here. What's happening next is, ministry is sending a consultant, I guess you call it, or advisor, or whatever, up to have a look at the whole situation and make some recommendations to us and the museum. And the discussion I've had with the museum is we've got to be very, very serious about looking at doing what they ask, if we ever want to see provincial funding.
Okay.
And so I think that's where we're going next. Councilor Kirby, I don't know, you've been part of this. Do you have anything more to add to that?
No, I think like when Brian Yonker, we had a meeting with him, that was basically it. They see what's happening here. I mean, I don't think the province wants to see them move from here, so then we're gonna have to work together on figuring out with the Heritage Branch how we move forward. And I think when Brian had that when we go down to UBCM is we hadn't really had a specific ask when we were getting there. So we talked about making sure that we talked about the province sending that facilitator down and taking a look. They're very I think their concern is about the governance, how the board is being run. They want to come down and take a look at that and get a good picture on how that's going to go. And so when after that meeting, Councillor Scott and I did meet with the museum just to start with the Museum Development Committee, and we kind of talked about that. And I think it is important that once we start, which has been done in the past, when we do get the recommendations, I think one of the things that the Museum Development Committee will have to do is make sure that it's understood that these kind of conditions and recommendations have to be followed. And so, but as far as like you're right, the fossils cannot be moved. The Museum Foundation themselves can't just say, we're moving them. It has to come from the province, from the RBC, the Royal BC Museum, and the Heritage Branch, and that special permits have to be undertaken, and so it's not just that easy, for sure.
Another thing that Councilor Kirby brought up at that meeting with Brian Yonker, was that some of these places are registered. They should be registered with the province, and a lot of them aren't. So he's checking into how that should be handled and where it goes next to. But I think we're on the right direction. It's taken a lot longer than I ever thought it would, but I think we're getting there. You okay with that?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay. No bylaws, new business, Cumberland Golf Course encroachment map reserve 8003326. We have a recommendation there?
The recommendation of council approves the submission for application for extension to holdings to extend the boundary of property at the Temple Ridge Golf Course to address the overlap with Crown lands on Section 16 Map Reserve 8003326, and the council approves submission of any other grant or application required to extend the boundaries of properties to cover the overlap with Crown lands that pertain to the Temple Ridge Golf Course.
Seconder. Kirby. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Road closure for the fireworks display. Recommendation there.
The council approves the closure of Monkman Way as per the map in Appendix A from 1800 hours until the end of the fireworks display on September 15th, 2018.
Got that. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, 8.3, community survey. And the continuance of TRMF funding. And it's here with the 3 questions at the bottom there, whether we want to have that on as a survey on our election ballots. And not. Motion, Councillor Casey?
I have a question first, if I might,
Okay.
Your Worship. I certainly agree with the fact that put the questions at the time of the election. I think we did that previously, and if memory serves me right, that goes back a few years. So then, when the elections are going to be held, in terms of voting, Dunwoody residents voting for who they want to serve on council, and so forth, we'll also have a separate area where they will address these subjects. It certainly worked well the last time we did that, which goes back a few years, so I'm certainly, for one, I support that.
Okay. Somebody wants to make the recommendation, and I think we can make it as presented.
Recommendation as presented.
Seconder, Councillor Kirby. Okay, for discussion on it, I'll start off with, I know the question came up the other day in our special meeting there, that we're voted in here to make decisions, but when you get to something like this, I really like to know the vision of our residents of where they want us to go with this, and yeah, it will be a council decision when it's made, when it comes up to funding season this year. But it will definitely give council something, the new council, plus us, to know what our residents really want. And I believe that the museum is very important to this town. But I also believe that the museum should be working towards improving this town or being a big part of this town. And I sometimes don't see that. That's what I think. Councillor Hoff.
Well, I know when we came onto council, we had 4 or 5 lingering issues that we didn't have maybe all the information that we needed to make quick decisions on it. And to me, this is going to be, for the next council that comes in, one of the biggest decisions they're going to have to make while they're in here. And if they don't have all the information on it, this to me is just another opportunity for them to get the right information as they sit in these seats to have to make that decision. I think this is a great opportunity for that. In a previous letter from Charles Helm, he talked about not having any input into the letter. That has since been rectified. We had the roundtable discussion. They were able to come in, add their 2 cents to it, and there really wasn't a lot to add from there. And they were happy with the way the questions were worded as well. So I think we've done our due diligence to bring them in and ask them the questions, but if they're comfortable with it. And really, it's up for everyone to decide and see what it comes out like. Like I say, it's not a binding question. It'd be awful hard to walk away from an 80% consensus on one or the other, right? So
I really like to change the name from a referendum to survey. I don't know. Just in my own mind, puts a better spin on it to me. Just to see where people want to go. Anybody else?
Your Worship, again, just for a clarification, if when new council is elected and coming in, and they have a look at the recommendation here and the motion that was made and so forth, correct me if I'm wrong, but they'll have the opportunity of reconsidering that particular motion and replace it with something else, whatever the wishes of that new council is, correct?
Yeah.
Sure.
This is not binding in any way.
That's right. Thank you.
they can't change the question. The question will already have been asked when they come in.
No, those will be done deal. Yeah. Okay, all in favor? Oh, carried. Scheduled meetings. We're getting shorter and shorter. Anybody has that schedule on? Seeing none, pass that. Before I go to notice of motion, I'm just gonna say, we're into election season, and when we're talking motions and we're talking question and answer periods and council business, I'm gonna be a little tougher on how we're gonna handle this, because I don't want this to be a platform for anybody for the election. That's not what these meetings are for. So either on council or off council, all abide by the same kind of rules, so it'll be more about along the lines of what's on the agenda we'll discuss, and there'll be questions, not comments. Okay, just thought I'd say that before we get going. Notice motion, Councilor Kirby, you have one parcel PGP 31185 lot 2.
You got that? Thank you, Your Worship. I brought this to council as a notice of motion. That area where Vestas is using as a laydown area, that land is in a recreation zone. Throughout the year, we've kind of talked about that idea in council, and this notice of motion is not to get anything started on it, like by staff to bring a report. It's to notice that area be put on the budget for 2019 as a discussion item. I know, working with the TAC group and working with many of the groups in town, there is a need to have an area. And this area right now would be, this parcel right now, if it's to be fenced at the end of it, is a perfect place to start conversations. And, you know, we've talked about having a permanent area for GrizFest many times. I think a lot of the costs for GrizFest or any other event actually in town is set up. And right there, you've got an area that could be really easy to work with. I think it's very important to get the community involved in that area, and my hopes would be in the 2019 budget that would be something that, you know, the next council could look at and say, that's worth looking at. Let's get a conversation going. You know, just being close to the campground, you know, Terry was talking earlier about the yard haunt. You know, things that you want to build on, that's a place you can build on stuff. I know we've talked with NDIT in the past about building some of the events we have, and they're very interested in putting in and helping on events that they've already started that ball rolling on. I know that the TRD Society has been in contact, and they're willing to, like, let's take it to the next stage, because events in this northern area are important, and that's why their group is actually there. So this is not anything set in stone, it's just the groundwork saying, let's look at that area. It's a great place, there's gonna be money coming in already. They've already talked, you know, when they start talking about how they wanna leave that area, it'd be good to start the conversations with groups, because I know a lot of groups would be interested in having input on that.
And I agree with you. And even you just talked that they're gonna fence it, I mean, there's the cost of the fencing is a big cost. And when you say all the groups can benefit from it, like our fall fair and all that stuff, it just makes it a little easier, a little cheaper for them to get something done. And we don't have to shut off the downtown area every time we have something in town.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Did I just hear you say that they are fencing it?
Yeah, they agreed to fence it when we had that conversation.
They've talked about fencing the whole.
So who, Vestas is gonna fence it?
That's just, yeah.
Like, while they're doing the project or after the project?
Why?
While they're doing the project? I mean, it may not be exactly what you'd want down there, however they're gonna do the fencing might be part of it. but-
Right.
But for having a discussion,
Yeah.
to put it into the budget, yeah, as long as it's not like, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and spend $250,000 to build this building, like.
No.
And again, I'd like to see this be a public thing, like, instead of us hiring a consulting company to come in and spend $100,000 to say, this is what kind of a building you need, I'd rather just put it back to the people and have them say, like, hey, this is what we think we need here, a group to do it, rather than try to get away from consulting fees.
Thank you, Worship. That's exactly why it was just stated for discussion and design development. And that's where you'd form a committee. You'd either use the TAC committee, which usually, that has a lot of the user groups already in that, or, you know, it could become part of a strategic plan for next council. It's just the starting point to say, let's look at that area for that purpose.
Is there a motion that you wanted to make on this?
I would, as presented.
Okay. A seconder for that? Councilor Parker. Any more discussion on it? All in favor? Moved, carried. Okay, I think that's the bunch of business. Very good. I'd like to hear.
Chuck, I just have one thing, and I've already called Mr. Wall, and I know he's already followed up on it, or he's had staff follow up. But just so everybody's aware, on Monkman Way, the lights are on. So there's no walk lights there now, and the street lights aren't working. It's a BC Hydro line, has nothing to do with the district on Bridge. And like I said, I know Mr. Wall's already done some follow up on it. It's been probably 2 months, month and a half, somewhere in there. I wonder if we shouldn't be addressing a letter from Mayor and Council to BC Hydro. I know we're meeting with him at the UBCM, but I mean, we have school that starts on Thursday with no crossing lights. To me now, we can put it in the letter that it's a safety concern for students going to school.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just, you know, it's been out, like I said, I think it's been definitely a month that Mr. Wall's been working on
That's only the crosswalk lights you're saying?
that. No, street lights teared up,
Street lights are down.
and the crosswalk lights.
I think that's a great idea that we should
Write that letter.
because we can also follow up on why they haven't came back to us about the LED lights that we wanted in town. Remember, Mr. Clickash sent a letter to them and said, once they did their study or survey, so you could add that to that letter as well.
Yeah.
And change those all to LED.
I can mention BC Hydro has started the survey on the LED lights. They called me on that probably about 2 months ago to start to see if our community would be acceptable to this happening. And we said, yes, we've been waiting for it. You're the only lights in town that haven't been updated.
Awesome.
But I wouldn't take that as an indication that they're going to be moving anytime soon on it. They were trying to make sure that if they go to LED lights, it's not shining in people's houses, it's not too bright, it's not too this, it's not too that. I said it's not going to be an issue. There's no residential. It's just along our main street. We'd like them replaced. The reply back was BC Hydro's not ready to move forward on this project yet, so it may be years.
I think this letter to, especially if it's a safety hazard,
No walk lights for the crosswalk, people going to school. And it's only to get darker.
I think we should send a letter to them.
Yeah, and I think we should send a letter as well. I think this is just an opportunity to get it in writing rather than a phone call or however you've had the conversation. It's in writing, it's on our record of correspondence. You know, anybody can come in and read it and we can say, yeah, here's the letter we sent to BC Hydro. We asked them to fix the street lights. While you're at it, you may as well do these LED lights too. It's going to get their attention that they say this is the kids walking to school, can't get across the crosswalk. It's going to get someone's attention, so.
I think that should be the main part of the letter, the crosswalk and that, and then at the end say we've also discussed
Sure.
the LED lights and we should like to have them pushed ahead.
So I know the walk lights are ours, so those are our lights, I believe that we power, but we power off them. And that's why they're not working. Just so everybody knows, crosswalks and walk lights are usually, they're ours, but we must hook into their power grid, that's why they're out.
It's pretty sad that
I think it's been a month or 6 weeks, and I know I called Mr. Wall and asked him if he was aware of it. He said he was, and that he would do another follow-up call, find out why they had to come out to repair.
So, council okay with us sending a letter? You need a motion on that, or
It's up to you, your worship. You don't need motions to send letters.
we'll send a letter? Anything else? And something I was gonna say, I can't remember what I did last week. Oh, we had a meeting last week, myself and Mr. Wall with the chief, the council, Soko. Very good meeting. They brought us, they had a PowerPoint there on Treaty 8, and it was very informative. It showed, this was signed in 1988, and it showed how they've been treated through this Treaty 8 agreement. And it indicates some of the reasons that we're in the position we are right now. And I think we should be recommending to them to bring it and give it a show to all the council, because it's very, you kind of worry about our federal government sometimes when you see how things used to be done. So, but Yeah, and we had a very good discussion with them. We're gonna work towards MOU. And once we get that done, I think they're in that, we talked to Caribou and stuff too, and they seem that, they said, once we get this MOU, we can discuss that and maybe work together, because they're also looking at economic, socioeconomic results from whatever happens to Caribou. It's getting bigger and bigger. We also had a meeting that day in Chetwynd with BRRD guy, people at Berlin and Dan on the Caribou thing too. So it's really hard to push that forward. They don't seem to want to discuss that with communities yet. And Mr. Wall's been trying to get a meeting, and this would be through the BRRD. You're not having much luck, are you?
With the federal government?
Yeah. And it seems the province itself is kind of scared of doing anything, so that's a discussion I've had with people like Mark Markowski, and that he's very concerned with where Canoe is going over the next couple of years, because it's going to really affect how they go. So it's a real big thing for Thunder Ridge, and to get really So, anybody else? Okay. Question and answer period. Any questions? Seeing none? Go to adjournment.
To adjourn?
Second? All in favor? We're done.